I'm doing a series of walks across London, and this one goes through the heart of the East End. Now there's a smorgasbord of photographic material from some amazing photographers over the years, and it would be so easy just to make a video of old East End photos. But tempted as I am, I won't do that. I will drop photos into the video, and while I'll linger on some of them as we go along, inevitably they are on the screen for too short a time. So perhaps best to utilise the pause button at certain points. If there's a walk, we've got to start somewhere, and this somewhere is Aldgate East station on the District line and Hammersmith and City lines of the London Underground. This was my arrival point, and from where I'll head east. Let's have a few shots of the present day Aldgate East station. The original station here opened on the 6th of October 1884 as part of an eastern extension to the District Railway. It was 150 metres to the west of the current station and much closer to the Metropolitan Railway's Aldgate station. The tracks of the Metropolitan Railway had to be particularly sharp owing to the location of Aldgate East. So as part of the London Passenger Transport Board's new works programme, the triangular junction at Aldgate was enlarged to allow for a much gentler curve and to ensure trains that were held on any leg of the triangle did not foul any signals or points anywhere. The new platforms at Aldgate East were sited immediately to the east of their predecessors, with one exit facing west towards the original location and another one at the eastern end of the new platforms. The new station opened on the 31st of October 1938, and this is the current entrance to the modern Aldgate East station, right next to the Whitechapel Art Gallery. This gallery, which first opened in 1901, was the first place that Picasso was exhibited in Britain. We're going to walk to Whitechapel Station through the heart of the East End of London. What's more, I'm not going to mention once a certain gentleman who was active during 1888. Well, apart from just here. This entire walk covers about half a mile through an area that's been a gateway for immigrants for centuries, from Huguenots to Jewish refugees to the large Bangladeshi community of today. We saw the former Aldgate East station earlier, but I'm going to start from one of the modern entrances. I'm walking between every station on the London Underground to raise money for cancer charities. You can see all the videos that I make on this channel. If you'll allow me to digress for a minute or so, interrupting this walk, I'll explain how I'm going about things. I started walking the London Underground in the spring of 2022, and I'll finish before the end of the 2020s having done every station. I'm trying to show everything on the way between these stations, and the project will capture a snapshot of what London looked like during the 2020s decade. There are hundreds of London Underground stations, and thus hundreds of my walks. Every walk is different. Sometimes it's summer, sometimes winter, sometimes it's raining, boo, sometimes it's sunny, hooray. But I only do walks in one direction. That's the direction towards London. As an example, I'll be walking Cockfosters to Oakwood, then Oakwood to Southgate on the Piccadilly line, and so on. But I'm generally not walking from Southgate to Oakwood to Cockfosters. That would be just too much effort. The exception to this rule is when I'm walking within the confines of the Circle Line, when there's no such thing as the direction that's towards London. For these central stations, I do walk in both directions, and the Circle Line is the outer boundary here. Except that is for Waterloo, Earls Court, Euston and Whitechapel, which are all slightly beyond the Circle Line, but why be consistent? This direction of walking, eastbound, will thus end at Whitechapel, but you can follow the inter-London walks in the other direction, so you get to see every station anyway. I hope that was clear as mud maybe, and if you want to follow all my hundreds of walks, why not subscribe? There's such a lot to see on this walk, and we're starting at a park where there's less to see nowadays, but in previous times this was an essential site of the East End. This was the site of St Mary's Church, the Whitechapel which gave Whitechapel its name. And it was called Whitechapel because it was made of white stone, but the original church was replaced in Victorian times. This is a photo taken in the 1920s, straight down Whitechapel High Street from the original site of Aldgate East station, and there's St Mary's Church silhouetted in the distance down the road. The Victorian version of St Mary's Church was destroyed in the Blitz, and this park has taken its place. And on this walk I've been trying to walk around the perimeter using the modern paths I've been given by Tower Hamlets Council. Not sure I've successfully managed it. Before the park rudely interrupted our route, we were on Whitechapel High Street and we're now on Whitechapel Road. This is evidence on how road names and districts of London sometimes just don't line up anymore. The centre of Whitechapel was originally Whitechapel High Street behind us at Aldgate East, and this is now Whitechapel Road, which originally led east out of Whitechapel. The focus of the area has now become Whitechapel Station, which is still ahead of us here. This street follows a section of the Roman road between London and Colchester. And speaking of place names, east of Whitechapel is the area called Mile End, which marks 1 mile east from Aldgate. The whole thoroughfare has been incredibly photogenic over the years, and here are some examples before we reach the next landmark in the modern day. The East End is really an historical embarrassment of riches, and I'm just going to really feature the ones that I pass. This is the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, much missed, disappeared only a few years ago, but it was the place where both Big Ben, the Bell, and the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia were cast. There's so much to see that I'm going to have to stop the video here. I mean, outside the City of London, the East End is the area that keeps on giving. I'm actually going to turn right down Fieldgate Street here. Had I carried on along Whitechapel Road, I'd have passed the site of St Mary's Station. This closed in the 1930s. It closed on the same day that the recited Aldgate East station was opened. It made no sense to have a station between Whitechapel and Aldgate East since they were such a short distance apart. So St Mary's, named after St Mary's Church, the Whitechapel, it had to go. Now I'm going to turn right down Fieldgate Street here, and we're going to start looking at some older maps. First of all, we'll have the John Rock map from 1846, which has been expertly coloured in by Matt Brown from the Londonist. And I'll be featuring his map along with the original version and some other maps as we continue. We're at the entrance to a street called Fieldgate Street here, and this was a road, or rather a pathway originally, which ran from the Whitechapel Road along to St Dunstan's in Stepney. And with acknowledgements here to Matt Brown from the Londonist, who has made a meticulous job of bringing to life the 1746 John Rock map. on his coloured map, we can see the entrance we've just passed, which is marked Whitechapel Fieldgate. Possibly this was a gate which stopped animals straying from the rural fields beyond into Whitechapel's urban area. And just on the left of the map is St Mary's Church, coloured in yellow, which we were walking past a bit earlier. The East End of London never stands still. This is now very much a Bangladeshi area, but until the Second World War and beyond, this was a Jewish area, and one of the major synagogues of London was here on the left, and this was very much a solitary survivor in Whitechapel into the 21st century. The synagogue had been badly damaged during the Blitz. By the early 2000s, the synagogue had a reduced capacity of just 150, mainly elderly women, and attendances continued to fall gradually as the local Jewish population in the East End declined. The Federation of Synagogues sold the building to the East London Mosque in 2015. Walking through this bit of a building site, but this towering building on the left is actually called Tower House, very towering. It's at 81 Fieldgate Street. And this was a local landmark which when first built was called Rowton House. This opened in 1902 and was the fifth of 6 Rowton houses. Perhaps it's Rowton houses. I'm actually not sure of the pronunciation, but I'm going to call it Rowton House. These were established in London between 1892 and 1905 to provide decent low-cost accommodation for single working men. This was described at the time as a monster doss house, and the Survey of London described it as housing 816 men, all living in cubicles. As you can see now, it's a bit more upmarket. Fieldgate Mansions over there date from 1907. At the beginning these were distinctive tenement buildings, but these became quite famous during the 1970s as countercultural housing. In the 70s, Whitechapel was just on the cusp of transforming from a traditional Jewish neighbourhood into the home of one of London's largest Bangladeshi communities. Fieldgate Street and Fieldgate Mansions housed students, activists, and an eclectic mix of residents. It still houses a large proportion of the local Bangladeshi community, and here's quite a famous photo. So way up ahead is the area of the Royal London Hospital, which is on Whitechapel Road opposite Whitechapel Station. We're seeing the rear side of it. This is still quite a photogenic area. You can see the traffic going left to right on New Road ahead. And at New Road I'm going to turn left back towards Whitechapel Road, then dive right along Mount Terrace, and we'll be in the heart of the hospital area, and then we'll go left again and rejoin Whitechapel Road. What with all the building, this is a bit of a stranded road at the moment. This is Mount Terrace. It's called Mount Terrace as it once actually led to a mount. Whitechapel Mount was a substantial artificial hill of uncertain origins, maybe a Civil War fortification, who knows? And I'll just show it on the John Rock map. This is my copy of the map, not the Londonist version. According to contemporary reports, pathways traverse the surface of the mount, and it functioned as both a vantage point and a concealment spot for contraband. Apparently it could accommodate horse-drawn vehicles and had permanent residences. I'll just put a hold on this story. What a wonderful lamppost! Various explanations have been proposed for its creation. Civil War defensive earthworks, a mass grave for plague casualties, debris from the Great Fire of London, and as a refuse heap, a dump. However it started, the mount's removal occurred around 1807. Given the widespread London belief in the Great Fire debris explanation, treasure seekers combed through the remnants, reporting remarkable discoveries. We've just reached what would be before 1807 the summit of the Whitechapel Mount. Look, there's me, silhouetted in the road. As we rejoin Whitechapel Road, this really is the problem with the East End of London. There's so much to talk about, so much to see, there's so much I just passed and haven't covered. And the back streets there's much more. But we're going to cross Whitechapel Road, cross to the other side. And we'll take a look at the Whitechapel Market, which has been here quite a long time, and it's completely changed character as the successive waves of immigrants have come and gone. The inevitable 2020s branch of Greggs. And here's a great photo of an earlier time along this very stretch. And there are photos I wanted to fit into this video and didn't yet get to, so here are some of them. Well, I'll just mosey along to Whitechapel Station, and if I don't get the chance again, I'd just like to say thank you for coming along on this walk, and we'll see you on the next one.